Right, if we don't have the proper decorum, Del Francis is going to be ringing that bell all day long. Hi, my name is Bruce Fessier. Thank you. And I sat next to Allene Arthur and worked with her.
Yeah, that's not working well.
My name is Bruce Fessier. My name is Bruce Fessier. I worked with Allene Arthur for 35 years. Sat next to her for 9 years. I was her boss for about 15 years. I want to thank a lot of people who are here to make this possible. Number one is Harold Matzner, who donated this room, donated the hors d'oeuvres, and he's just been a great friend to Allene and everybody else in this community. Peggy Cravens, who donated the money to make this program possible. My editor, Greg Burton, who made it possible for us to put some of Allene's better columns. You know, Allene worked for the La Jolla Light. She wrote stories for Palm Springs Life, but copyrights are not easy to come by, and Greg donated the copyrights for the Desert Sun so that we could see a sampling of some of Allene's columns. You know, I know a lot of people here, but looking over the guest list, there's a lot of people I don't know, but it feels like I know them because I've been reading a lot of Allene's columns lately, and I recognize a lot of names on this guest list. And, you know, that's the great thing about Allene's column writing, is that she never just wrote a list of names. She told stories about all these people so that you felt like you knew who these people were. And that's what's called building a community. And that's what Allene Arthur did. Looking over some of the names, I'm seeing names like Sylvia Goldfuss, who's 93. Sylvia got word from her doctor after an examination that she's so sound, she'll live to 100. So Sylvia told the folks at Meisel Senior Center she'd like to make a lunch reservation every Thursday for the next 7 years. Sylvia's son, Joel Goldfuss, is on the guest list. Joel has moved to the desert from San Diego, and he can't get used to every third street here being named after a celebrity. He says, I forget whether I'm going to Gerald Sinatra Drive or Frank Hope Boulevard or Ginger Waring Street. A lot of people here are returning for the summer, and Allene always liked to report on what these people did from the summer. I see from the guest list that Virginia Sharp is here. Virginia spent several days at a calorie rationing, body torturing spa. Then she went on a calorie drenching, lazy cruise with her husband Mickey. She figures she came out even. Betty Francis will be speaking shortly. She helped organize this event with the amazing Robin Montgomery. And Betty's husband, Del, is here with a bell. A bell that, if some of our speakers run too long, he will be ringing this bell. And I ran across a little item that Allene did about Betty and Del. Did you know that when Betty married Del, she gave friends a trick to remember his first name? She said, just think of Farmer in the Del. So now some of her friends are calling him Mr. Farmer. These are Allene's words, Allene's column. So before Mr. Farmer rings that Del or bell, I'd like to introduce Jerry Ring, our pianist, who's going to play one of Allene's favorite songs. Which just happened, and sing. He's going to play and sing one of Allene's favorite songs, which just so happens to sum up just about every night of Allene's life.
Good afternoon. Whenever Allene would come to a club or wherever I was performing, I knew this was her song, so I always sang it for her. Some enchanted evening, you may see a stranger. You may see a stranger across a crowded room. somehow you know even then, that somewhere you see her again and again. Some enchanted evening, someone may be laughing. You may hear her laughing across the crowded room. Night after night, strange as it seems, the sound of her laughter is seen in your dreams. Who can explain it? Who can tell us why? Who give you reasons? Wise men never try. Some enchanted evening, you will meet your true love when you hear her call you across a crowded room. Fly to her side and make her your own. For all your life you may dream all alone. Once you have found her, never let her go. Once you have found her, never let her
Now I'd like to bring up Betty Francis for a few memories of Allene.
Can't think without a pencil in my hand. By the way, I remembered something on the way driving in, so I scribbled a little a P.S. at the beginning, and I just wanted to say that for the last several years, whenever I've been asked to speak somewhere, I work in a statement that I felt very compelled to use. That Allene Arthur set the standard for society reporting so high that no one will ever meet it, but I'll keep trying. But I don't have time for applause or he'll ring the bell. 1979 was a good year in the desert. In January of '79, Allene Arthur arrived as the Desert Sun's beautiful new society editor. The following month, some kid named Bruce Bessier, and we couldn't pronounce that name, he arrived, and he was not as beautiful, but he was very ambitious and talented as a reporter.
Not that ambitious.
Then, the next month, a gal named Betty Chapman, who later became Betty Francis, arrived and opened an advertising agency. Hey, somebody had to sell the ads to pay for all that paper and ink that Allene and Bruce were using up. Allene became an instant beloved star of the newspaper, and the first time I called her, I'd heard so much about her, and I was so nervous that I blurted out, I would have called you sooner, but I couldn't remember how to spell your name. But Allene, as always, was gracious, and we quickly became fast friends. So, when this dreadful day came, I thought to myself, what would Allene tell me to say? And the answer was instantly there, make them laugh. So I went back through some emails from Allene and found some off-the-record things she had written to me.
Can't hear you say in front of the mic.
Right into the mic.
Okay. Some recent emails that Allene wrote to me that will never be printed in the Desert Sun. Here's a recent one. In response to my email saying that Peggy Craven wanted to join me the next time I came to visit Allene, she wrote back, "What a lovely surprise that I used to always go, when I was going to Allene's, I would go to Trader Joe's and get her some gourmet items. What a lovely surprise that Peggy wants to do a shopping trip and visit. I can't quite imagine her shopping the aisles at Trader Joe's. I picture her doing it so in a designer gown." When I wrote to Allene about my 80th birthday party, Allene said, "80 years seems like a child to me. Oh, to be 80 again." She was 91 at the time and working on her opening column for this upcoming season. She also, one of the cut items from her email, "I'm being courted by email and phone by a guy named Hank Richmond. But of course he's thinking of me as I was 30 years ago. Right now I wouldn't be such a hot date. I'd have to stop and take time out for a nap." Then she added, "My bladder condition is better. I never thought I'd be overjoyed just to be able to pee. Peeing is better than winning a Pulitzer Prize, better than winning the lottery, and better than an orgasm." Boy, I sense some people that identify with that. Another time, Allene confessed, "When I filled out my Desert Sun job application, on the blank that asks for your age, I wrote ageless." Then she explained it. "That's because people treat you differently if they know you're 90. She says, "When nurses see that number on your chart, they suddenly talk louder, more slowly, and enunciate more clearly. They call you dear, they help you up on the table, and they explain things ever so carefully." But then she added, "I'm dealing with ailments. I'm depending on friends for transportation and Meals on Wheels. I'm wearing a Life Station Alert bracelet. I have a hearing aid and a cane, but I'm coping, and I'm focusing on the things I can do rather than what I cannot do." One more statement before they ring the bell. Allene, I know you're here. You wouldn't miss this party. And I know you're having a ball in heaven with the angels, making them laugh. See you soon. Love, Betty.
Thank you, Betty. We're going to go back to the program now. We deviated a little bit, but I'd like to bring up the family. First, if we could bring up, well, I met him when he was called Tim, and then he changed his name to Jim. So here's James Rhines. Allene's son.
Okay, with or without glasses? I'll try it without, but I can't guarantee I'll be able to keep them off the whole time. She walks in beauty, like the night of cloudless climes and starry skies, and all that's best of dark and bright meet in her aspect and her eyes. Thus mellowed to that tender light, which heaven to gaudy day denies. One shade the more, one ray the less, had half impaired the nameless grace, which waves in every raven tress, or softly lightens o'er her face, where thoughts serenely sweet express how pure, how dear their dwelling place. And on that cheek and o'er that brow, so soft, so calm, yet eloquent, the smiles that win, the tints that glow, that tell of days in goodness spent, a mind at peace with all below, a heart whose love is innocent. Thank you, Lord Byron. But whoever inspired that poem, I have an even better model for you. My mother walked in beauty all her life. She took her first beauty steps in Tennessee, the friendliest state in the Union, and that kindness stayed with her always. She and the family followed her father, a fellow with a lot of curiosity and wanderlust, to Ohio, back to Tennessee, and finally to California, where as soon as they arrived, she found herself wobbling in beauty because of the 1933 Long Beach earthquake. I was going to say the earthquake wasn't her fault, but you know, that's terrible. I tried it once before. It's so awful. I'm not going to say that. Put the glasses on. I wouldn't help the pun. She played in beauty with her little sister Marion, from jacks and dolls to the most important game of being each other's best friends all their lives. As a good big sister, she looked after her little sister all her life. And as a good little sister, Marion looked after her right back, including later looking after each other's children. But all the while letting my mom think she was the big sister all the time. She danced in beauty in South Central Los Angeles during the Great Depression. She skipped rope with her friends and went to cheap movies because they couldn't afford to do any more for fun in those days. They'd skip rope to romantic poetry like, "My father went to Harvard, my mother went to Yale, I got my education at the LA County Jail." Isn't that beautiful? It makes me want to cry. I saw some noddings of recognition out there. She walked in beauty during World War II, when she wrote letters to scores of GIs on the home lines, keeping the boys' morale up as they fought to save the world from fascism. And sometimes she sent them photos of her beautiful self to go along with her encouraging words. So she was a big soldier in that effort too. How could Hitler and Tojo beat Allene? No contest. No contest. And when she was 23, as the war was ending, she walked in beauty right out of the bed where she had been sick for so long with rheumatic fever, because for most of that time she hadn't been able to walk at all. She walked in beauty at all her jobs, including assisting Peter Potter and Eddie Albert on radio and later on television, serving as an early 1950s version of Vanna White, although no one ever turned more letters and more splendidly than my mom. In Pasadena, one beautiful October day, just like this, in 1951, she walked in beauty down the aisle to marry my father, an all-around restaurateur and entrepreneur. You know, honestly, I wasn't there yet, folks. But if you're interested in the event, there is a young lady here in this room who was there at the time. She was the flower girl, my dear cousin. I love you so much, Diane Willie. And a few years later, she was walking in beauty down the beach, holding her toddler's hand as he trotted along behind and admiring what he called a gluna. Isn't that cute? I never stopped hearing about a gluna for about the next 30 years. I have since learned to say Laguna, you'll be happy to know. I also know how to eat with big people's utensils too. I'm a big boy. Well, soon after we moved to La Jolla, and she had to have a hip replacement. And so she limped in beauty, up and down the aisle of our long, narrow restaurant, the courtroom, the world-famous courtroom, as we called it, and it was. Helping my dad manage the place, managing the waitresses, serving as hostess, and lettering each and every menu, many of which were pilfered as souvenirs and for ideas by some of the competition. She walked in beauty and somehow sometimes had to run in beauty, even with a limp, trying to keep up with one squirrely little boy, one kooky teenager of a stepdaughter, and 2 dachshunds, trying to get them all to behave. I'm not sure which was the toughest job. At least I never chewed the sofa. Honest. I only did wholesome things, like having BB guns right outside our big, beautiful picture glass window, and making an electric chair out of a go-kart motor, and making a gas chamber out of a chemistry set and a closet, and trying to climb our garage with a homemade batarang. If you remember Batman, you know what a batarang is. And exploring and mapping the underground drain pipes under La Jolla. Hey, I had to know where they went. And what else did I do? Playing a fun game called self-induced hyperventilation. Boy, that was fun. And putting rubbers, snakes, and spiders in my sister's bed. And you know, funny, strangely enough, none of these endeavors ever came to a very successful outcome. I don't know why. I mean, I had this admirable spirit of scientific inquiry, but none of them turned out too well. But through it all, she nurtured us all. Even the tiny puppy who wouldn't feed, so she fed him with an eyedropper. She never had to feed me with an eyedropper, more like a shovel. And all her life, she wrote in beauty, starting with the little newsletter she did for the Acme Brewing Company, where she worked, rambling about with Allene stout. And her writing, excellent from the beginning, just got better and better. Later, she wrote a gossip column, a nice gossip column, about our restaurant and its patrons as a weekly ad for the La Jolla Light newspaper. And it became so popular that before long, the editor told her, look, your columns are so great, and everybody loves them, so instead of you're paying us for them as an ad, why don't you write us a column and we'll pay you? And thus it was that she became a columnist, and later a society editor for The Light. And her skill and fame grew so much and so fast that a few years later she was hired away to do the same thing here in Palm Springs. And you know the rest of the story. She even learned to drive for the first time at age 56 for this job. She'd just taken taxis or whatever before. Oh, she hated driving. She hated driving. I would like to say she drove in beauty up and down Highway 101, or 111, excuse me. She drove, and she got there. So I think the beauty part here would be that she always picked great-looking cars who were just as classy and gorgeous as she was, head-turners like her. Well, as you know, for 36 years, she delighted the Coachella Valley with her wit, charm, and always sparkling prose. Not to mention what a good citizen she was, always helping people and always blowing the horn for other people, helping other people. And what a good friend to everyone she was. And so, on behalf of our family, thank you so much to all of you for coming here, with special thanks to Harold Madsner, Robin Montgomery, Betty Francis, Bruce Fessier, and so many others who made this such a huge success. You know, she covered so many affairs for so many years, and we all loved her coverage, and we all loved her so much. I think this is the best function of all. And I'm tempted to say I wish she were here to cover it. But she is. She's here, circulating around, taking notes, and she'll cover it for the Celestial Daily Chronicle. So let's have fun. Let's have lots of fun remembering her beautiful walk through life. And especially here, waltzing through Sinatras and Gabors, Fords and Annenbergs, fringe-toed lizards and bighorn sheep, and most importantly, a whole lot of nice people like you. The best tribute we can all pay her is to try to follow in those beautiful footsteps. So thank you so much. Now, I'd like to introduce a person I mentioned earlier, the lady I always thought of as my kooky teenage sister. Well, she still is, and now she's an award-winning school teacher who educates other people's kooky teenagers and occasionally really hopeless little boys who put rubber snakes in beds and make electric chairs out of go-karts. Please welcome my dear sister, Shelley Fletcher.
Okay, folks, this is as good as it gets right here. I know about the time, 1 minute. Are you ready? Get the timer ready. I'm Shelley Fletcher. I'm Allene's stepdaughter. She stepped into my life when I was 5 and was always there. Here we go. Alphabetical attributes of Allene. Let's see what you can relate to. Admirable, beautiful, clever and classy, diligent, eloquent and elegant, fascinating, generous and gracious, hardworking and humble, insightful and intelligent, jovial, kind-hearted, ladylike and lovely, morally just, nurturing and notable, optimistic, patient, quick-minded, reliable, smart and sexy, talented, unpretentious, vivacious and valiant, warm and witty, extraordinary, young at heart, had a zest for life. But more than anything else, she was loving and she was my role model. She was our mom.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to pass the mic around, and here's some memories about Allene from anybody who would like to say something. Can I see a show of hands? Anybody who would like to say something?
And the girls, our student girls, will take you to the back and they can ask.
Okay, great.
I guess so.
Okay, great.
Peggy was supposed to say.
Well, Peggy's going to come on. She's still...
No, Peggy's supposed to speak.
Okay, Peggy, go ahead.
You didn't follow the program.
You sure?
No, I didn't pay attention to the program. I'm sorry.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
James.
Well, indeed, there are so many lovely things that have been said about Allene, and all of them so appropriate for her. We've all loved her for so very long, and indeed, I'm very proud to have been asked to be part of this evening, or this afternoon, I should say, today. But almost everything that I wanted to say has already been said, and of course, we all agree that she was one of the most elegant and talented ladies. And she adored my late husband, Don Cravens. A lot of people did, but I mean, they had so much in common as journalists, and he was a photojournalist. And of course, a lot of people do know about his background. But I will keep my remarks short. I just want to relate to a delightful luncheon I did at my home many years ago. I called it the Bionic Women's Luncheon, and everybody that came to the luncheon had to have had some kind of knee replacement, hip replacement, God only knows what. And I went to the doctor the doctor that did my knee replacement, and I asked him if I could have little x-rays that I could use as place cards. So I used these little x-rays, and we went around the table to see who had what done to what and where. Well, the truth of the matter, and it was sort of like a little contest, and I said the person that's had the most bionic reparations, if you want to use that word, was going to win a very unusual prize. So lo and behold, who won the prize but Allene? Because at that point, Allene, God bless her, and I don't know how she ever survived all of this, but she had had 4 times hip replacements. Yeah. And this lady, probably aside from being beautiful, talented, brilliant, was also very courageous. And we all loved her for the very reasons that we know she was a decent, kind, nice person. And yes, when she wrote about me, she was always very complimentary, and I certainly appreciated that. And I loved her dearly, and we stayed in touch right till the very end. So thank you very much for listening.
All right, now we've given some people some time to think about some stories they want to talk to.
The girls.
Okay, let's start with Ted Grover. Ted actually hired Allene in
You
1979.
want to take the mic to him?
Thanks.
Thank you, Bruce. Lyle Shoemaker. How many of you remember Lyle Shoemaker? Lyle Shoemaker. Remember the name? Well, he was the editor of the Desert Sun, and he came into my office one day and he said, "I've got this lady who's the society editor for the La Jolla Light, and I've talked her into coming up here to interview for a job at our paper." The lady that had been our society editor was unfortunately died a short time before he came in to tell me this story. And I said, well, we ought to do something special to interview her, to make her impressed with what we had to offer here at the Desert Sun. And he said, well, what would you like to do? And I was a member, a social member, at the Springs Club out in Rancho Mirage. So Lyle and I went to the Springs Club, and Allene showed up. I don't know how she got there, because in fact, she couldn't drive at that time. The Desert Sun paid for her driving lessons so that she could learn to drive. She was unable to drive when she came to the desert. That's absolutely true. And we paid for her driving lessons, and she hated to drive. He's absolutely right about that. But she did drive for a long time after that. I'll keep it really short and tell you that we were so delighted when she accepted, and she really didn't fill out an application, by the way. We offered her the job at the Springs, and a couple of 3 days later, she called Lyle and said, I'm coming to the desert. And that's how she got here. And we were so delighted to bring her here. I worked with her for a long time, loved her, and over the years showed up in her column a couple or 3 times anyway, and appreciated all the wonderful things that she added to the desert scene. Not just to the Desert Sun, but to the desert scene. She added so much. And so thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Ted. If anybody else would like to share a memory of Allene? George.
You know, as a journalist myself, I'm longing to be funny. Well, Allene was funny. It was such a gift. She was really a talented writer. She was what I call a writerly journalist. I mean, it was more than just doing it that. She was just a very good writer. And one time she came to our house for a party, and Jamie Pricer was shocked, simply shocked, when she gave us 11 inches. It was like the highlight of my life, you know. But anyway, Allene was so sweet and so egalitarian and so lovely, and we really liked her.
Thank you, George. Nelda. Nelda Wins.
This was an article that was in the Desert Sun, and I don't have a date on it, but I think it was in the 70s or early 80s. And I just want you to know, she had such a great sense of humor. Passion for our respective charities in the desert is equal to our passion for golf, or perhaps for political scraps. At a luncheon the other day at La Valerie, just before Spencer's was here, several locals with strong loyalties to area causes happened to be seated at the same table. The opportunity to beat their own drums before a captive audience was irresistible. Nelda Lent's commitment was to put together several tables for the Kirk and Ann Douglas tribute for the Palm Springs Chamber of Commerce at the Marquee on Thursday. Nelda pointed out to the assembled diners that the whole town would be there. Cal Vanderwood is president of the Showcase Concert, which will present the Western Regional finalists at the Metropolitan Opera National Council auditions on February 19th in the Annenberg Theater of the Palm Springs Desert Museum. A chic après concert will follow. Vanderwood made a fervent pitch about his proud baby. Mousy Powell is honorary chairman of the February 26th whoop-de-doo at the Plaza Theater, where her late husband, William Powell, will be honored. At the affair called Grand Heritage Premiere, Norm Crosby will entertain. The Palm Springs Follies Group will perform, and a supper will be served in the courtyard later. Mousy said emphatically that it will be really, really swell. Hal Broderick, vice chairman of the board of directors of the Desert Museum, was very high on the spiffy black tie gala coming off Saturday at the museum. A cocktail reception will precede a performance by Petula Clark, followed by dinner and dancing to the Tony Rhodes Orchestra. Broderick proclaimed the evening is a bargain at $1,000 per person. Mousy then took another turn, announcing that she's on the best committee, a host committee for the Heartstrings on February 16th, sponsored by the Desert AIDS Project. The package includes dinner at Wally's, Desert Turtle, a show at the McCown Theater in Palm Desert, and a post-theater cast party. Mousy said they would never forgive themselves if they missed this one. After all had finished hustling one another, Nelda sold a ticket to Cal for the Ann and Kirk Douglas tribute. Cal sold a ticket to Nelda for the museum gala. Mousy bought a ticket from Cal for the Showcase concert, and he bought one from her for the AIDS benefit. Nelda and Hal got tickets from Mousy for the Plaza premiere. Then Cal bought something from Hal, or maybe it was the other way around. She had such a sense of humor, and she wrote, for the famous and the not so famous, and she always had such a sense of humor. I love her and miss her so much. Thank you.
My name is Allene Rosenthal, and those that know me know that I really take issues with language. Well, I can thank first Frederick Hyder, we go that far back, and then Allene. She was the first one to ever put anything in the paper about my business, which was at the time called the Shirt Tail of Palm Springs. And it was, I couldn't believe it. And later, Miss Betty Francis really did wonderful things for me. But every year for my birthday, Allene would send me an email. Happy birthday to the toughest broad going except for me. I think you're fantastic. And every year, it was such a treasure. And she was really a dear woman. We all, I know, loved her and will miss her.
I'm Lydia Kramer, and one of the things we haven't said today is what an amazing memory Allene had. After her 90th birthday party that many of us were at, I arranged a luncheon at Mel Haber's because Mel had missed the party, and we used to have luncheons, three of us together. And this particular occasion, they really reached back, and they were talking about people and things and that predated me, and I was just amazed. And it would get to a point, and Mel would say, what was the name of so-and-so, and who was that with so-and-so? And Allene would have it right there. She wouldn't miss a beat. It was amazing. But meanwhile, she was drinking many cocktails. All of us were, and she just was on. And it was just like such a great privilege to be a little fly on the wall of those two. And I also had the privilege of buying Allene's first book on Amazon, and she signed it for me, and I'll treasure it. So, thank you.
Coming over here. I'll address that in a minute.
My name is Pamela Green. I've known Allene for a number of years. And one of the things that I learned right away was be careful what you said in conversation, because it would end up in her column in the Desert Sun. And believe me, I speak from experience. I love to cook and bake, and I would share my goodies with her throughout the years. I would carry them to her home and hand deliver and have a nice conversation with her. And I have chosen a couple of her notes that she wrote to me to share with you today regarding my cooking and my baking. Pamela, darling, your Christmas cookie assortment is divine, luscious, ecstatic. They are the best I've ever tasted, and I'm a cookie freak. My son and his bride were here for a few days, now in San Diego and La Jolla, our hometown, and will return to Palm Springs on New Year's before returning home. The hospitable thing for me to do would be to offer some of your gourmet cookies as desserts or as snacks for them as my house guests. Instead, I kept them in my bedroom to enjoy myself. That's not a very motherly thing to do, but the hell with them. I still haven't left. Thank you, thank you. Love and Happy New Year, Allene. And one of the other ones that she wrote said, thank you, my darling Pamela, for the luscious Christmas cookies. I'll admit I was secretly hoping that you would deliver the cookie magic to me, and you did. As I did in previous years, I did not share with my son and stepdaughter and her husband, nor with any other visitors. Instead, I kept the cookies in my bedroom and treated myself whenever I had the notion. My selfishness may not be in the true Christmas spirit, so to ease my conscience, I baked a frozen berry pie for son Tim. He's crazy for berry pie. So doesn't that make me a good mother after all? As I hoard my Pamela cookies for myself. And the holiday presentation of cookies was lovely, of course, hand-delivered by Pamela in holiday red. You are a doll. I'm glad your shoulders are working better. Happy New Year. Love, Allene. May your soul and spirit soar.
Hi. My name is Lee Goodsell. I didn't know her as well as a lot of you, but as a writer, I always admired her writing, and I always felt like it set a really high bar. And just yesterday, I was reminded of her. I was out thrift store shopping, which is one of my favorite things to do. And what should I come across but Allene Arthur, Palm Springs Chamber, 1987 Woman of Achievement. I love the fact that it's a little tarnished, because I think she would appreciate that too. She was not a sterling silver type of person. I'm going to bring this to you all. And I think it's just so evident that she is has such a tangible and intangible presence with us for all time. Thank you.
You know, Allene had some really colorful reporters who actually worked for her when she was the society editor. We have a couple of them who are here today, and you know, who could forget Gary Calando, the society editor who had his name tattooed on his arm? or there's another one that Allene once had to bail out of the Indio County Jail. But Pam Beery is here. Pam, can you say a few words about Allene? One of Allene's staff writers.
Put me on the spot, Bruce. I'm Pam Beery. Allene was my first mentor and editor when I began writing for the Desert Sun in 1979. covering society events, and she just taught me so much. But her kindness, graciousness toward me as a brand new writer, I will never forget. But yes, Gary, wow. We were in the back, and then Gary and I, and the sports desk, and the editor, the alt editor, Mary Boudry. It was a wild time, and I miss that. I miss Allene. Thank you.
And career. I've got to say that in 1979, the Palm Springs Women's Press Club had to announce their first Press Woman of the Year. And they couldn't decide between Allene Arthur and Gloria Greer. So they gave it to both of them. And this is Gloria's daughter, Anne.
Thank you. My mother wished very much to be here today, but she wasn't able.
Happy birthday.
Yes, thank you. But she wanted my sister Norma and I to come to represent because Allene was one of Mother's most favorite people. Every time her column came out in the Desert Sun, the first thing she would do is open it up to that column because it was always so funny and wonderful, and it just made the whole day much, much brighter. And as Mother has said several times to various occasions, if Allene was there and Mother was there, it was definitely the party. And so they had so much fun together.
Who else has a memory to share? I feel like an auctioneer here.
I feel that's a perfect segue to my affection for Allene. I was fortunate enough to lead many society events through the properties and businesses that I've managed in Tammy Parish Chica. And at the time that I was most involved, I think, was when I was opening the gardens in El Paseo. And she taught me what society and all of you cherish when you gather. And so I am forever grateful.
Do you have anybody else who wants to share something? Okay, on the other end of the room. Hold on, I'll be right there.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kay Fitzgerald Fry. I am a longtime resident of Palm Springs, say about 45 years. Many of your names and your faces look very familiar to me. Today is all about the lovely Allene Arthur, who I had the privilege of being a neighbor in her building for many years. And I want to say this to begin with. I've never seen a woman so beautiful in a set of curlers come to you so often and dry. Ever. She was stunning. Allene was a busy woman. I grew up on the Desert Sun, and I followed all the social activities and her column. And my goodness, we came to be neighbors for many years. She came to meet a gal Friday a little bit later on in life, and I was happy to just be there. And I got to spend a lot of quality time with her and really know her outside of those curlers. She was, and will always be, a woman of uncommon grace. One that stands out from the crowd. A lady, a very unpretentious soul, naturally talented, naturally beautiful, and giving to anyone and everyone that crossed paths with her. She's somebody to look up to be your mentor in many different ways. And I'm really thankful that I got to spend some quality time with her, because Allene made me a promise, and I made her one, I said, you'll never have to worry. I'll always sharpen your pencils, get your paper. And she said, don't you worry either, because when you're 90, I'm going to be here to take care of you, Kay. God bless you, Allene Arthur. You are the best. And we won't leave our hearts anywhere, anytime.
I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge another great writer in our audience, Joseph Wamba and his lovely wife, Dee. You have anything you'd like to share about that? You have anything you'd like to share about that?
Well, briefly.
Allene was a great friend to us. And when I was younger and more energetic, I entertained quite a lot. And Allene was always there at our house for my mother's birthday and, well, whatever I was doing, she was always there. But I guess I met her through a couple of guys, a couple, and it was like they had always been friends forever. And when I came into their lives, Allene became my friend. And we joked around a lot, and we emailed toward the later time. And also, we consulted a little bit while she was writing her book. So, she was a great lady. I'm sure you all know that. Thank you.
I hate to put people on the spot, but that's kind of what I do for a living. This would not happen without Robin Montgomery, so I'd like to...
Allene and I were phone buddies. And one day we were talking about what was the best opening paragraph to your favorite book. And I said it was Charles Dickens' Tale of Two Cities. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom. It was the age of foolishness. And Allene said, oh, pooh. Everything is a good time because we wake up. You can be dead, then what? And of course it's the age of foolishness. We're still being foolish because we're having fun. That's a stupid opening.
Gordon Parr.
Thank you, Ruth. I didn't have the privilege of knowing Allene all that long. We moved down here in 2001. But I started reading her column, and she was so humorous and such a nice lady. And we exchanged a few emails. I remember when the Desert Fashion Mall came into view as something that might be reconstructed or done something with. And so we talked about that back and forth, and it seems in one of the plans there was a park-like walkthrough from Palm Canyon to museum. And she said, well, what in the world are they planning there? And I said, well, there's going to be some benches or something. And she said, oh, well, maybe that'll be a good place for, the ladies of the night to hold out.
Maybe one more, and then we'll wrap this up. Is there one last... Robert Bird.
I met Allene when I moved to the desert in 1981. I'd grown up here since I was 8, but I moved away. You go to college, you move away, you don't want to come back. But I came back, and my grandmother was very good friends with Allene Arthur, as well as my mother, but my grandmother, she wasn't driving. I didn't know Allene wasn't driving. I guess she had people drive her, but my grandmother would tell me, come on, let's go. We're going to dinner, I'm meeting Allene. And I would go and I'd drive my grandmother. And then it was very interesting, and I saw Alona von Rane come in here. I married an Austrian, and every time I went to a party where there were Austrian people, Allene was there. And maybe Alona can share about the Austrian link. But I saw a lot of Allene. I was married to a man named Heinz, and between my grandmother having me drive her to see Allene and my husband and all the Austrian parties. And I'm going to savor the report that was done on her death. I was so thrilled that a friend of mine, Barbara Wisby, called me to tell me that my mother had quoted things about Allene Arthur, and I didn't bring the paper with me, but I was so happy that Bruce called my mother and she shared some things. And I will save that probably forever till the paper crumbles. And I'm so glad to be here. Allene was just, there's no way that you could even tell her age. She was so graceful, such a good writer, just a fabulous person. And I know we all miss her. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma. I just wanted to say some final things. You know, like they said, I started with the Desert Sun 1 month after Allene did, and she always called me the new kid. She worked until 1988, and at that point, the cancer finally got her down, and she didn't take disability. She never complained about any of the problems that she had, and we've heard some of the physical maladies that she endured. She just retired, and fortunately at that time you were able to come back from retirement and be a columnist, and she came back and she started writing a column once a month that was again a highlight of what everybody read in the Desert Sun. And then we evolved, and my editor at that time told me to tell her that we didn't need her services anymore. And she said, I think you should take her out to lunch to tell her that. So I took her out to lunch and I told her that, and she cried, and it was very hard. But the great thing is that she came back again, and she wrote, and despite all of her maladies, all of her physical problems, she continued writing. Every week she wrote. She never missed a deadline. And I just find it amazing. This is her life. This is what she did, and she did it all the way up until the end of the season. Our society section ends in late May, I think it is, of every year. And she sent me my birthday email in June, which she did every year. And then she went into a convalescent home. And it was like, okay, the season's over, I can relax. And so she didn't get a chance to write a farewell column. But as I was going through this program, as we were doing this program and we were looking for some columns to highlight in this program, I read hundreds of her columns, and it was the hardest thing I ever did, is trying to narrow them down to 10, and Robin will tell you I came back with 30. I said, I can't narrow it down to 10, so Robin and Betty and I got together and we narrowed them down to 10. They said, no, we can't fit 10 in there, it's got to be 8. And I said, can we do 9? But anyway, I actually found what was Allene's farewell column, and I've had trouble reading it, actually, but I'm going to try and get through it here. This was written in 1988 when she was retiring from the Desert Sun, and the headline was, "Finishing a Chapter, Turning a Page." So excuse me if I get a little emotional. Like opening a forgotten trunk of souvenirs and scanning each memento, I rummaged through my files of my Desert Sun columns the other day. Writing an average of 3 per week for the past 9+ years adds up to about 1,415 columns. At approximately 800 words per column, that's 1,132,000 words, give or take a paragraph. This is my 1,416th column, and it will be my last. For a sentimental slob like me, this is a life milestone, not unlike leaving the old school or breaking up with a lover or moving out of a house full of memories. Column writing is a form of communication, but it's one-sided. I send sentences in newsprint out to you, but you don't have an opportunity to write a column back to me. It's a mixed condition. The columnist gets to be center stage every time, gets to give herself all the best lines. And unlike getting into a monologue at a cocktail party, the columnist gets to edit out beforehand. No awkward pauses, no hasty subject changing, no excuses the next morning for things you wish you'd said differently, or said better, or said not at all. But because of this special advantage, the columnist is expected to deliver, to amuse, to inform, or entertain, or help, to reach an emotion, or to find common denomination of interest. Was that a bell? For these 9 years, my journalistic province for this newspaper has been social reporting, the fluff, as it's called, by those in the craft. I have never known anybody who wanted to grow up to be a society editor. My girlhood daydream was to be either a serious novelist who influenced the whole universe for the better, or a singer with a swing band, preferably the latter. But through a series of flukes, a left turn here and there, a measure of acceptance and column scribing for a newspaper called the La Jolla Light, I landed here as the Desert Sun society editor. Social reporting is considered trivial by many, this junk food, if you will, of a newspaper. And they're right, nobody needs a chocolate chip cookie, but oh, isn't it fun. Without apology, I forthrightly submit that the world needs trivia and fluff. The soul needs trivia and fluff. Dancing the tango is fluff, and slumber parties, playing the lottery, snowball fights, blind dates, and class reunions. None of it makes the front page or the evening news, but it's this trivia intermission that refreshes, like a coffee break from the harsher demands of reality. Socializing is part of the timeout. Parties, entertaining and being entertained, gathering together with or without noble purpose is a part of every culture. It's as natural as coming in and out of the cold. The desert is comfortable with its socializing. It's a major pursuit, an industry, and art. Reporting its details and the about-town chatter has been a rare pleasure. Material here is rich and lavish indeed. By the numbers, Valley residents boast a high ratio of achievers, of full or part-time resident celebrities, and leaders in every field. Social extravaganzas, golf tournaments, and fundraisers of every stripe are presented with creativity and glamour. We're famous for it. And the non-famous among us are accomplished or accomplishing. Generally, people in our desert community are smart, humorous, and aware. That makes them quotable, and that makes the columnist's job easy. I never did get it all said. The wealth of quotes, anecdotes, odds and ends, and human interest vignettes I jotted down in fleeting moments, the story ideas I always meant to develop. One thing you learn when covering social events is how to make a graceful exit. I had a very nice time. Thank you for inviting me. We at the Desert Sun are the lucky old sun, and it just so happens that Allene's favorite singer was Frankie Lane, who sang that song, and Jerry Ring is going to perform it for us now.
I do have to share one thing about Allene that's fun with me. I released a book, I wrote a book that came out 2 years ago. Allene covered it. I did a celebrity book launch here. Betty Francis was very helpful. But Allene and I fired emails back and forth. The way we would greet each other, she would say, "Hey stud." And I said, "Hey chick." And they went back and forth all the time. We always signed off smooches, which was kind of fun. This is my friend Mike Johnson. I listened to Frankie Lane sing this song, and he sang it with a guitar, and I thought it's appropriate to have a guitar rather than a piano. Up in the morning, out on the job, worked like the devil for my pay, but that lucky old son got nothing to do but roll around heaven all day. I fuss with my woman, I toil for my kids, sweat till I'm wrinkled and gray. With that lucky old son, got nothing to do except roll around heaven all day. Dear Lord, can't you know my heart? I'm hiding. Tears are in my eyes. Send down that cloud with a silver lining, and in the paradise, take me to the river, show me across, wash all my troubles away. Like that lucky old son, got nothing to do but roll round heaven all day. Dear Lord, can't you know I'm hiding? The tears are in my eyes. Sit down that cloud with a silver lining. Lift me to paradise. We took her to the river, we showed her across, we washed all her troubles away. And like that lucky son, she's got nothing to do but roll round heaven all day. Like that lucky son, she's got nothing to do. Roll round heaven all day.
On behalf of Allene's family and my co-chair people, thank you for coming.